Hey, welcome back into another segment of Mindset Monday with me, Matt. It's in these episodes that I share with you what it took to get sober and stay that way, to rebuild my marriage, become a better husband, a better father, and to become a better man. Today, right now, I am celebrating 13 years of continuous sobriety. And I don't say that as a brag by any means. I have always said that I've never said I'm proud of my recovery. I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that I have the life I have today. I'm grateful that I'm living a life that I don't believe that I deserve. I'm doing much better than I deserve. I am just incredibly grateful. I wake up on every anniversary. I just think about all the people that took part in that journey, whether it was people that were affected, and it's a day to honor them and their experiences, like my wife, my children, my friends, my family, employers, whoever it might be, and to take a moment of reflection. Also to think about people who are still out there struggling. People in recovery at their best ought to be a beacon of hope for people who haven't quite made it there. And I've tried to do that for people. I've done my best to display some qualities that may be attractive enough for someone to ask the question, hey, could I do that? What about me? What's wrong with me that I can't get the same result? And that's what I've always tried to inspire in people, because I'm sitting here not as anyone who's exceptional, just someone who's showing you that it's possible. It's possible for anyone. I absolutely believe that. As long as you can be honest, you're willing, and you can keep an open mind, there is a beautiful life of recovery and sobriety for you. I remember what it was like to think about 1 year, and like that seemed impossible, because at the time, 1 day or 1 week seemed impossible. And I've been there before. I know what that's like to hate yourself and to be so down and drowning in shame that you feel like there's no point, can't win, don't try, I've screwed too much up. You are wrong. Shame is a powerful emotion. It is one that ought to drive us toward a better place, not one that we sit in. So no matter where you are today, I'm sending you love. I'm sending you all the best, and I am encouraging you to just keep going. Now, with that out of the way, I want to talk about something. This is a message that I've received more than a few times from people, generally guys in recovery. I've also received it from spouses as well, but there's a non-zero number of people that truly believe that our content is dangerous. They believe that it is harmful. They believe that we give a completely and wholly unrealistic view of recovery. And I want to address that. I think that it's pretty major to say that it's dangerous, right? It's dangerous and harmful. I think I know what these people mean. I'm going to address that concern. I completely disagree with you, 100%. And I'm not here to cave and say, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't mean it that. No, like I'm going to tell you exactly why you're wrong, because it's not dangerous. To say that our content is dangerous would be like telling a fitness instructor that what they're doing is irresponsible because they're showing you a healthier version of who you could be. To say our podcast is dangerous, for many guys, whenever I hear that from them, to say that it's messing with their marriage or it ruined their marriage, because what? We showed your wife that she ought to have standards. So if it bothers you, it's probably, in my opinion, a good thing. But could it be dangerous? And yeah, it could. Because what our content has never been meant to do is to create divisiveness in a relationship. It is meant to be a lens that people can view their relationship in a way they may not have before for what it oftentimes is, which is abusive in some way. I use abusive in the sense, I don't just mean physical. This could be emotionally, verbally, financially, however that may be. Mistreating someone chronically and validating them is abuse. And many people have never viewed their relationships that way. Many people just think that once they get this drinking or this drug use under control, that everything gets better. But what they find oftentimes, more than not, is that there are many more issues underneath the surface, which shouldn't come as a shock to anyone, because we know that addiction is a symptom, not the problem. But I think a lot of people believe that the symptom in their relationship that is standing between them and happily ever after, getting back to who they once were, is that addiction. But there's so many other issues and factors at play here. So many other issues. We often wake people up to that reality. And what we've often done, I think, remember, we're not encouraging people to split. I have gone on the record as saying, if you're in a dangerous situation, get to safety, and I'll stand on that all day long. But we are a married couple. We did get through this. But I've also been incredibly honest that this is rare. It's rare. It's rare to have someone who is on my side, who's willing to do that work and walk through that shame and keep going anyway. and also a spouse or a partner who still has enough patience left in them, who hasn't been through some of their non-negotiables like cheating or affairs or physical abuse, or maybe it's just been too many years of that behavior where they just can't come back. That was luck in a lot of ways for us. Like I think there is such a thing as a total relationship. And just because you may have watched an episode of something or listened to a podcast or read a book that woke you up to something that you've acknowledged in your life does not make me or Paige or our show or anyone who supports it a villain. It doesn't. We give people standards. I'm not sorry for that. I give people a high bar, notably a high bar, I think, to meet. But I don't really see it that way, because if we're saying that honesty and transparency and vulnerability and connection is a high standard, I'd like to know what your standards are. And at that point, I'm kind of worried about what's going on behind closed doors that has you so scared that your spouse is listening to this. Here's what our content was never meant to do. It was never meant to be used as a weapon. It's supposed to be educational. It's supposed to be inspirational. It's supposed to be reflective. You listen to our show, and our goal, our hope, like many couples do, is they have some really, really great conversations for the first time. We are just the icebreaker. We're just a vehicle from which you start to have awesome conversations that are relevant to your relationship. But what we don't want people doing is beating someone over the head with it, or sending it to them in a nasty way, or weaponizing it. We don't want people weaponizing our content or being petty. And if you know Paige, if you know me, we're not about that. If that's who you are, okay, but you know where we stand on it. I don't dislike you or love you any less. That's just not who we are. And I think you know that's not what we intend for anyone to do. What people do with content is what they do with it. If we're not for everyone, and I completely understand that, but hey, you're an adult, use discernment. You're an adult. You get to decide what you take in and what you don't. So if this isn't working for you, try something else. Try whatever works for you. My hope is that you get there. We are just one method to do that. But I'm going to go through some of the scathing letters that I have gotten here over the last few years that I've never really talked about on the show. Maybe I've referenced a couple of times, but to talk about some of the red flags I think that are hidden inside many of them. Most of the time, these are from guys. Sometimes they're from spouses and partners too. But I think it's going to be a pretty interesting look into the mind of someone that truly believes that our content is disgusting and it will wreck your marriage and wreck your relationship. I've got a lot of things to say here. But first, just want to say thank you for being here. Appreciate you guys listening in. Thank you again for being patient. I don't want to beat that dead horse, but life is busy. We're releasing less new content, doing it as often as we can. And I just want to thank you guys for sticking around, for listening, for supporting the show, for supporting each other. Like, you guys are showing up in our free Facebook community, which we have, TWFO.com. Go there, check out our community. You can find out all about that. Just answer the questions and you'll get in. It is a space where thousands of listeners of the show, people that really engage with the content, can go and support one another. It's awesome. People literally fly around the world to meet up with each other. It's the coolest thing ever. We've also got merch. I'm wearing some of it right now. Got our hoodie on. We've got hoodies. We've got t-shirts. Bunch of different ways to support the show. Water bottles, stickers, you name it. If you want to support the show but you don't like merch, you can go to our social media profile and there is a buy me a coffee link in there. You can just buy us a cup of coffee. And speaking of supporting the show, we've got SoberLink. SoberLink supports our show and has for quite some time now. If you are in a situation where your drinking has become so problematic that no one believes when you say, I will do better, I will try, because you've relapsed so many times, but you're serious this time, if I were you, I would get a SoberLink. It does a few things. One, it provides accountability because you have to use this device. It is a breathalyzer, but it is just the world's greatest accountability tool disguised as a breathalyzer. You have to use this device X amount of times a day. You determine how many times that is, but it's going to show people that you're being truthful. And so if you're serious and you're afraid that now you've become the boy that cried wolf, SoberLink can be that mechanism that helps you rebuild trust in more than one way, because you're not just showing them the device. You guys agree on times, and it notifies a network of people that you set up, those people around you that are so invested in your journey, whether that be your wife or your partner or your adult children, whoever, right? Your therapists, counselors, whoever you want to be notified, they will do that. And it provides accountability, but it also provides support because they can see what you're doing. And spouses and partners, we believe in this because for so long, you've been lied to and you've been deceived. And maybe not intentionally, but that causes harm. It causes harm to you, and you're not sure if you can trust yourself anymore. SoberLink gives you the ability to trust. You can trust that data that comes out of that device because it is verifiable. It is the best device that exists in this space. It has military-grade facial recognition technology. It is tamper-proof, so you can't jack with it. You can trust the results that come from it, so you can start to trust yourself again. And if you're in a situation where you're just trying to make sure your children are safe and maybe you're sticking around just so you can keep an eye on them, listen, SoberLink has got your back. They are court admissible in all 50 states and in Canada. You can get these things written into your custody agreements. Go to soberlink.com/wheels to find out more about how to get into one of these devices. Used to be you would have to buy the device, which is rather expensive, and then you'd have to get the monthly plan. SoberLink has given you a break because you're an awesome listener of our show. When you use our link, soberlink.com/wheels, they will send you a $100 Visa gift card. And when you sign up for a 1-year plan, you can just rent the device. No upfront costs for as little as $19 a month. If this sounds like something that you want to get into to start rebuilding trust in your relationship today, check out SoberLink and support the companies that support our show. All right. Having gotten that out of the way, I probably missed something. It feels like it's been a while since I've done this. I want to talk about these emails that I get. And it is not the first one that I have received. They're always kind of shocking. Most people ask questions. Most people say, hey, thanks, this has helped me a lot. But every so often you do get someone who sends you a rather scathing review of what you do. It's tough because you feel misunderstood in that moment, but it's also someone's very real experience. And I'm always get really curious about their own experience with our stuff because I don't know what's going on in y'all's lives. I have no clue. Like I don't know you, right? I'm talking to a camera right now, to a microphone, but I don't get to really see your lives and how you're using the content. So it's always kind of shocking to see what people take from it. This person had a really strong reaction to our content. Basically what they said was their spouse, after listening to our show, their spouse became really hypercritical of them. The relationship became incredibly miserable. Intimacy disappeared. Transparency became exhausting, and they could never live up to the standards that I guess we had set. And they felt like our content made addicts like a villain, and they completely removed accountability from the spouse. And they felt like our process was, as they put it, dangerous, harmful. I think it's worth talking about because I know this isn't the only person that feels this way. I have received these messages in the past. In fact, I've received this message from a spouse before too, who said that our content made them look at their spouse in a too critical of a light, that they couldn't see maybe the progress they were making because they kept looking at the finish line. And I just want to be clear that this stuff doesn't happen overnight. And I think I've said that, but if I need to say that again, people don't become like maybe what you see on this show overnight. Remember, we started recording the show, I think when I was like 9 years sober or something like that, or maybe 10, somewhere around those lines. So you're looking at this like pretty good ways down the line. We don't have content from day 1 or day 2 or day 3, but it wasn't always perfect. Some of the things we do talk about though is that honesty was one of those things that was, I wouldn't say, let's call it perfect. Yeah, perfect from the get-go. I was honest. I was no longer lying. I was no longer being deceitful. I was practicing humility and openness and vulnerability and all those sorts of things. But the trust came back little by slow over time. I think that the emotional intimacy came back little by slow over time. And so if your spouse is making strides and they're doing some of the same stuff you hear us discuss here, that's great. My experience shows that if you keep doing that, you'll probably get what we got and better. Just keep going, right? Keep going. Just keep after it. I would hate for someone to look at, this is like fitness instructors, right? Let's say you open up a bodybuilding magazine and you see someone like a bodybuilder. They're ripped and 6-pack and they're toned and all that stuff. And then you look at yourself in the mirror and that's like you saying that fitness magazines are dangerous because they give too high of a standard. No, it's showing you what's possible if you want to walk that path. That's what we do. And it is possible for anyone that wants to walk that path. All right. That's what that is. So I don't think any fitness instructor, and nor would I or Paige ever say that the small strides you're making to get there are wrong or bad or shouldn't be acknowledged. I've been very open about saying that. Like When you see something good, say something good. I've said that more times than I can count. I'm not going to go back and find that every time, but I've said that. When you see something awesome, acknowledge that. Make sure they see that. Make sure you let them know that effort is acknowledged and you appreciate that. And you can win along the way. That's what we did. It wasn't like a switch flipped and all of a sudden we're this that you see every day. That's not the way it works. So we always say, and this is going to sound terrible, but I don't mean it terribly, but it is what it is. We're for smart people. I think that Paige and I have always said that, like we are for smart people that generally like our content and get what we're trying to do are smart. And when I say smart, I don't think like IQ necessarily. I think like common sense. You just have common sense. Like you understand that what you're seeing is the byproduct of a lot of work and it's not an overnight affair. And like, guys, use your brains. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, we're for smart people. If you want to take our content and work it in some extreme where somehow it's dangerous now, I guess go off then. I don't know. Like, it's nuts to me. Like, it's crazy. That's not the way it works. So I want to talk about what our show actually is, if you're confused. And I think more than anything, when I get these sorts of emails, I wonder how long these people have been listening. Like if you've been listening for a while, if you're like an OG and you've been listening since the beginning, I think you know this. And like you're nodding your head, maybe you're laughing along with me. Like, duh, right? Our show is a microscope view of how addiction affects spouses and partners. That's ultimately what it is. That's why TWFO has gained any kind of a following and notoriety, because it highlights something that many people aren't talking about: the experience of a spouse or partner from a real, rational perspective and point of view with common sense language. That's it. That's what we do, okay? We are not an addiction necessarily recovery show. I do have some of my own episodes, but we're here to inspire people. That's what we wanted to do. We want to inspire people. Paige has her episodes on Fridays. I've got mine on Mondays. We have our joint topics on Wednesdays where we discuss any number of topics as a spouse's experience in addiction may be concerned. Okay. That's what we do here. So if that's a problem, find a different show. I don't know what to tell you. Like that's what we do, man. I don't know. Like there are shows about millions of other topics. Check one out, I suppose. I don't know, but that's what ours is about. So remember that. I think our goal has always been challenging people too, on both sides of the relationship. Paige challenges people every Friday in some ways. She does. Like, these are really loving, challenging conversations for spouses and partners. I challenge people, guys like me, who are trying to get better and rebuild. I challenge you guys. We challenge couples. We challenge people to look at really difficult truths in their lives, because sometimes they're in danger and they need to get to safety. Sometimes they're in a very toxic situation that is not going to get better, and they're putting their children in harm's way. And we lovingly have conversations with people to challenge them. That's kind of what our show is about. That's one of our core beliefs and core values as a couple and just in life in general. That's what we do here. Okay. I don't know what people expect. I think a lot of people will see our content and they think that we're like some, I don't know, like one of those like Christian, like traditional couples that teach women how to like submit more, or I don't know. I don't know what the hell people think, but that's not what we do here, man. That's just not what we do. So maybe we're just not for you, right? Wrong demographic. That's cool too. Like I said, wish you no ill will. Love you. Wish you all the best. I hope you get everything you want in life and more. It's just, maybe you won't be part of your journey, and that's okay, man. Go seek happy, whatever that means for you. But I don't think that we've ever really said that addicts are just evil people and spouses are angels either, man. But when we're looking at the experience of a spouse who has been affected by someone else's addiction or abuse, we are going to talk about that perspective and what that feels like to be a victim in many cases. That is what it is. Some of my best growth came from acknowledging those truths, that I had been abusive, that I had been a shit. I had been terrible to her. And I wanted to get very interested in what her experience with me was like, so I didn't repeat it anymore. So I could validate what it must have been like to be with me, to understand where she was coming from, to understand the patterns that she developed as a result of my behavior over those years. It is not to beat you up and to tell you how awful you are. It is to open your eyes for those brave enough to look at it and see the effects of your actions and behaviors. That's it. We ain't playing tit for tat over here. That's not what we do. It's not transactional. We're just talking about the facts, man. That's it. We rarely ever talk about codependency on the show because, frankly, I think codependency is bullshit. Many people discover that once they're out of a relationship with someone who is addicted and abusive, they're no longer quote unquote codependent anymore. But the world will tell spouses and partners that it's their shortcomings that are making half of the problem in this relationship. And it's our opinion, but that just ain't true. I was the vast majority of the problems in our relationship, and it's not hard to see. And to the degree that she had some of her defects, they were a result of dealing with me. And I don't know why that's hard for people to comprehend or understand, or why that's dangerous. We'll get into that. I think I know why, but I'm going to get into that before I go off on a freaking rant here. But I am not saying by any means that addicts deserve shame. I don't believe that, I think shame can be a powerful driver of change. I don't think people need to live in shame. I don't think you should shame people. I don't think that that's a nice thing to do. And if your goal is to rebuild, ask yourself how that helps you by tearing someone apart. It doesn't, right? My biggest growth came from me tearing myself apart, all right, with love, so I could rebuild it. You got to tear down the moldy walls before you can rebuild it again and make it livable. That's just the fact. You can't get away from that fact and that work that has to be done. And if you think you have a better way, I encourage you to go try it. But everyone I've ever met in my entire life that's ever done anything worthwhile will tell you the same story. They had to acknowledge some really difficult truths before they could really get the work done. And that's just a fact. All right. If you've got a better way, then go for it. Do it. Fine. Don't send me an email though. I don't care. This is what worked for us. This is our show. This is what works for people in all walks of life. All right. It's not gentle, and we've never claimed it to be gentle. It is a tough way to go about it, but I think a necessary one. And what you get from this on the other side is a degree of connection and intimacy that nothing else can get, because you will know each other like two people can never truly understand, who've never been through something like this. When something taboo happens in your life, when you've been through hell and back together, nothing can stop you. That's what "till the wheels fall off" meant to us. That's what that saying means to us. For you, it may mean something completely different. You've got your own battle cry with it, but that's what it was for us. You're unstoppable. And I think for spouses and partners that get through this, even without their partner, they've got a very similar story about rebuilding, about seeing the light. I've written about Plato's allegory of the cave before. If you want to go to our blog, you can check out the allegory of the cave. I did a part 1 and a part 2, but the allegory of the cave is a story that talks about these people that are in a cave, right? And their entire lives, they are chained to a wall they're chained to a wall looking at a wall. And throughout the day, these shapes appear on the wall. And over time, they begin to interpret these shapes with meaning. Like one can be a horse, right? But they don't know what a horse is because they've never seen a horse. And so they'll give it a name and they'll imagine what it does. And they'll see these figures and they're shadows on the wall because they're chained to a wall and something's projecting these shapes. Well, one day, one of the prisoners wakes up and he's free from his shackles. And he creeps out of the cave, starts exploring, and then he notices a really bright light, so blinding that he can't fathom it. He walks toward the light, and by the time his eyes adjust, he realizes that he's in the real world now, that he's been in a cave his entire life. But he doesn't really know it because that's all he's ever known is that reality inside that cave. That's it. That's his whole life. Imagine that. And then suddenly seeing this beautiful world. And he runs back into the cave to tell all of his friends that are still chained up what he's discovered. And by the way, he runs in and discovers that those shapes on the wall were nothing more than like figures on sticks. And there's a fire in the back, and there was people who were projecting these things using the firelight. And his whole life was a sham. It was a lie. Everything that he constructed to have meaning meant nothing. That is what people generally get whenever you start to take in content and information like this. And to go back into the cave and try to explain to other people, sometimes they get violent about it. Sometimes they get angry. They don't want to hear it. But more than anything, they just can't understand because they haven't seen it themselves. Our job is to do our best to show people what's outside the cave. Our job is not to drag people back into the cave, which is what I think that some people, I don't know, some of the people that write us, I think it's kind of what they're after. Like we've talked about, there's 3 stages of growth kind of. There's like the naive stage, and that's before you know anything. And then once you begin to understand stuff, you will get cynical. You'll get really cynical and you'll get really angry. And then after a time, you will gain wisdom. You can never go back to being naive again. You can't. Once you know something, you can't unknow it. But I think some couples where a guy benefits from their wife being in the dark and being naive, they get really, really upset whenever we disrupt the status quo in their lives. So our podcast didn't ruin your marriage. And it's not my fault that your wife may have listened and now she has standards for you that have upset the status quo in your life that you benefited from. In fact, I'm proud of that. I'm not sorry. Not sorry. Okay. But that's what our show does for many people. And I don't think we've ever said that spouses shouldn't take a really good hard look at themselves. I think something we always caveat with that, though, is acknowledging that a lot of the times, not always, but a lot of the times, these behaviors came as a result of survival and what they had to do to survive. The hypervigilance, the anxiety, the needing to know everything, right? The control, quote unquote. A lot of these things are like labeled into codependency. I think that they are absolutely survival mechanisms that people have to use to get by. Spouses and partners don't want to be control freaks. They have to be because they're the only one who's keeping everything together. That shouldn't be hard to figure out. My contention is that you ought to be patient with that process and understand that you played a part in it. Maybe not all of it. Maybe some people came into the world that way and this just amplified it, but you have a 1% part, then you have a part. That's what we talk about here. But I think what we're really trying to do here is give both people, a better understanding of what's going on. I approach it from the perspective of someone who's been through addiction, who has struggled with addiction for a good deal of their life, and then my wife's perspective about what that was like to be her. And also the perspective of the people that we've come to know and love that have been on the other side of this. That's what we do here, man. If you've ever been confused, at the end of the day, that's what we do. And what our show is really about, it's about growth. It's about growth. It's about challenging yourself. It's about growing. It's about constructing values that you live by, knowing what you stand for, knowing who you are again. And this goes for both people, right? Spouses and partners typically listen to our show and they love our show. I find that the people that usually have the biggest problem with it are the people on the other side, guys like me who aren't quite ready to get there. And I could see why this show would cause problems for your marriage. But hey, man, I don't know what to say. In Paige's words, do better. That's what she would say. I know she would. But anyway, these emails always read like, you brought a lot of things to light that disrupted the status quo that I was benefiting from. That's almost always the case. And I think that's a real possibility for a lot of people that have an issue. But if our show brought up some really difficult conversations, I think that's a good thing. If our show made you confront things that you would rather not look at, I think that's wonderful. If your spouse has now stopped accepting things that they used to tolerate for years and years and years, wonderful. That's great. That may not feel good for you though. And I understand why, because you were benefiting from it. That does not mean that your marriage is damaged. It meant that this thing that you called a quote unquote marriage, this abusive relationship, this unilateral agreement that you had, and when you enslaved this person with these ideas about what love and what a marriage is, has been disrupted and you're no longer benefiting from them. You can say that your marriage has been ruined, but that's not what a marriage is it, man? No, it's not. It's not. And then, hey, let's just be real about that. If we have woken somebody up and gotten them out of a dangerous situation, I think that deserves a round of applause, not criticism. And that's also not to say that I take any pride in splitting people up. I take pride in helping people grow. And I hope that whenever you see that in someone else and they begin to pull away, you'll do the same thing that I did. Because that's what happened in my relationship. I could see her figuring me out and knowing that this is not right. She had been outside the cave and she had seen the light of what life should look like. And I tried to drag her back in and she wasn't having it. And so instead of staying in that dark place, I decided to confront some things within my own life and do something different with it. But that's really a you choice. You get to decide that. ultimately up to you. I can't do that for you. If I could, I would do it every single day, but I have found that that is not possible. You cannot force a horse to drink. I can take you to the water. It's up to you if you want to dive in. That's all on you. But I also think that, to say that it's dangerous or damaging, I don't know. It's just really bizarre to me. You're an adult and you can discern what you need in your marriage and your life based on your circumstances, your values, who you are as a couple, people, religious preferences, you name it, and decide what works best for you. If this doesn't work for you, that's okay. Like, we wish you love. Like, hold no ill will toward people. I think it would be irrational to expect that this would work for everyone. Why would it, right? There are billions of people in the world, billions of perspectives. Why is this one the ultimate? It's just not. Like, this will work for some people. This will work for, I think, a great many people, but it's not going to work for everyone. Fair. That's totally fair. I can accept that, right? There's some things that we do that maybe just doesn't fit with you, and that's okay, man. But I think that if you're in a situation where you start to explore the content together and it starts to bring up difficulty, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that that should be a sign that that old relationship was no longer working for at least one of you, which means the relationship is no longer working, right? It's just, you've probably had the upper hand, and when it's no longer in your favor, suddenly it feels like something's wrong. But it's not. It's not bad. It's just, you have to acknowledge it's no longer working. Sometimes disruption is necessary for us to begin to rebuild in the right way. I think that sometimes things get worse before they get better, and that's totally normal too. I think that sometimes the unhealthy version of a relationship has to fall apart so that a healthier one can be built. Now, I am not a guru. I am not a licensed professional. I'm none of those things. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a guy with some takes on things and a microphone and a camera. And if you wanted to, you could do the very same thing. And I would encourage you, if you think we are so full of shit and you've got a better way, I would love to hear it. I'm not being facetious about that. Like, if you think you've got a way to help people, then do it. Just do it. Start, some content and get the message out there. And if you think it helps people, great, man, they'll find it. They'll find their way to you. I'm just not sure exactly what the benefit is in keeping people in the dark and keeping them chained in the cave. I think that that's kind of a sick way of looking at it. It's like saying that a doctor ruined your life because they pointed out your blood pressure was like high and you needed to make life changes. It's like saying that like a budgeting app ruined your finances because it showed you where you were wasting all your money. It's like saying this podcast made your wife have standards. And that's a bad thing. Like, think about how disgusting that is to say. You made my wife have standards. Wow. So that means that you were benefiting from her not having any. And again, I'm not sorry for that. I'm proud of that. That's great. That's wonderful, because that's good for her. And if you let it, it'll be good for you too. It'd be good for your children, good for society as a whole, your community, everyone. Guys, let's have standards. Let's bring that back. Can we bring back standards for behavior? We ought to. I mean, come on now. But accountability is a tough thing, and it's not abuse. And I know that I've probably touched on the line of like, hey, that's a little harsh before. And I have. I'm not the most eloquent trained speaker in the world. And I will say things that are just in my heart and in my gut, and sometimes it's fiery, and I've probably said some things that are harmful. But everything I've said comes from my heart. Everything. I don't know if I could say that I would double down on everything I've ever said, but I just think it's what I've always tried to do is to bring about a message that gets people fired up in one way or the other, right? Spouses, get them fired up and to truly believe the things they're seeing, that they're not crazy, that what they're seeing is real. And then for people who are struggling, like, to get them fired up, they can be better, man. If they struggle, that they don't have to be that person, and they can be someone different, and they can succeed in life, whatever that means to you, that definition of success. But like, one thing that concerns me, I think, is when people describe honesty or accountability or openness or vulnerability or transparency or taking responsibility as dangerous. Because how is that dangerous? Because those are the things we talk about on this show. And like, yeah, is it extreme sometimes? Maybe, but I don't really think so. Like, I do believe in extreme ownership. Like, I will always say, like, even when I've been wronged, if I have a 1% part in that interaction, then I've got a part, and I can look and see where I can do better, no matter what. In some situation, I've got a part there, and I will always look at things that way. I'm not a one to blame others. I'm just not, man. I've never pointed the finger. You can ask Paige about this. I think I was probably like several years sober before I started to talk about some of the communication dysfunction that still existed as it pertains to her tone or like the way that she responded to me. I didn't do that right away because I felt like I've got a lot of work to do first. And that is an acknowledgement that a lot of people, a lot of men struggle with, is that if you have been the one who caused the damage, it shouldn't come as a surprise to you that the bulk of the work is going to be on your part before we can start asking them to carry the same amount of weight that you do. It's just ridiculous. But I think that there's so many people who struggle with control. That's the problem. It's control. You want to have the upper hand. You benefit from having the upper hand. You want to know that you're getting something out of this before you will move. Like, you've identified the problem right there. The problem is you. You have control issues. You are abusive. That is a power imbalance. You benefit from an upper hand on someone subservient to you. It's a toxic behavior. Let's call it what it is. It's concerning to me. Like, if those things of openness and honesty and transparency and kindness and all that stuff is dangerous to you, like, I fear what takes place behind closed doors. That's why our show's important. That's why we keep talking about this stuff. Because for every one of these emails that I have from people who say that our content's dangerous, I probably have a dozen more per email from someone who says that we saved their life. A spouse or partner who got out of a bad situation, children who are now in healthier positions, and even people in recovery who had to face the fact that they could no longer keep running their game because their spouse or partner listened, and that's what motivated them to finally get clean and sober and become a better person. So I'm not threatened by these messages. I just think it's insane to me that you would fire off a message or an email like this without considering the fact that what's hidden inside of this is your admission that you benefit from abusive dynamics. That's insane to me. The more openness, the more honesty, the more she learns is worse for me. And it shouldn't be. It should not be. We're not asking anything outrageous. We're asking people to stop lying, to stop manipulating, to stop hiding, to stop making excuses, to stop minimizing, to stop getting defensive, to stop using addiction as some kind of a shield. That's not abuse. That is what repair requires. That has been our lives and our experience. Recovery is not just getting sober. Recovery is becoming safe. Now, like this idea that spouses will weaponize our content, I will get to that. But first, I want to talk about there's something I hear from a lot of guys, which is that, repair takes two people, dude. You always talk about what I need to do, but what does she need to do? I'm going to do my best to say this in a nice way, but that makes me want to shake you when you say that. If that's the first thing that comes out of your mouth, you're still missing the point. You're still completely missing the point. You are thinking about what you're going to get out of this. And you're saying in a roundabout way that I'm only going to do X if I'm guaranteed Y. Y being her making my life better. And I don't know, maybe we're just cut from a different cloth. That's not the way I ever looked at it. But then I have to be honest and say, well, maybe our spouses are built a little bit different, because mine's not like that. Paige is a gentle, kind soul. She is a sweet person. She is not out to hurt me. She has never wanted to put me down or to criticize me or make me feel less than. That is not who she is. And maybe your spouse does have some of those tendencies. And I understand where you're coming from. If that's your life, then I get it. It just wasn't my experience. So anytime I'm talking on the show, I'm assuming someone's not doing that. And we don't encourage people to do that. How does that help people? How does that achieve a goal of any kind? Maybe it makes you feel good to dunk on people, but it doesn't help anything. It just doesn't. But let's just look at it from my perspective real quick, okay? And I think it could work for you regardless of how your spouse is acting, because eventually that will have to come into focus. Eventually. But let's focus on the biggest problem, all right? If your house just got struck by lightning, what's more important? The water getting through the hole or the fire in the attic? Let's get the fire out first, okay? You're the fire. We will patch the roof shortly, in short time, but let's take care of the fire. Relationships do take two people pulling in the same direction. Both people always have work to do. That does not mean that both people caused equal harm. Okay, I'll give you an example. When I was getting sober, there was still a lot of dysfunction in the way that we communicated, the way that we talked. I was coming off of a decade of lying to her, of deceiving her, of manipulating and gaslighting, Darvo, all of the things and these tactics that manipulative and abusive people use. I was doing all of them. That's why I talk about them often, because I was that guy. That was who I was. Those things were present. And the question I asked myself, rather simple question, is what did those actions and how did those actions affect her? In what ways did I set up patterns in her that I'm looking at right now? And what I mean is, now that I'm sober for, let's say, 6 months, and I come home late, and for her to jump at me and bite my head off with no patience whatsoever, to accuse me of, this is what you used to do. You're acting just like so-and-so, someone that, used to act that way too. This is like all behaviors, and it feels discrediting in the moment because I'm really trying. But I have to remember that she's acting this way because that was her reality, because of my actions. And then suddenly it just takes the sting out of it. And I realize that I'm looking in the mirror. I'm looking at a version of myself and my own actions. And I'm able to have patience for her in those moments. But Paige was always great about acknowledging, like, I'm sorry. Like, I know I came off strong there. This is just still really new. And I'm like, I know. I get it, honey. And I'm sorry that I put you in this position. I'll communicate when I'm running late. I'll do my part. And I'm sorry. And she would always do hers without even telling me. I will do better about not biting your head off. And she would. She would, man. But if you look at that interaction, who had the bigger part in responsibility? I did. I'm taking responsibility for doing something that I didn't think I should have done, but I should have, in notifying her. I'm taking responsibility for my own behavior, and I'm taking responsibility in some ways for her behavior because I played a part in it. And that's what I'm always talking about here. You have the larger share of work to do. End of story. Period. I don't want to hear this tit for tat shit. Stop. I believe in our content. I hope our listeners, it is assumed that you will have to unwind some of the stuff at some point too. All right. We don't say that you are a perfect angel who has nothing to change. That is not what we're about. You know that by now. Okay. This is for the guys listening though. That's not what we tell your wives. Never have, never will. I'm saying that you have more work to do. That's pretty simple in my mind. It shouldn't be a shock to you. We're not equal in our shortcomings with the people that we've harmed. Like, we have more work to do, and that is not a judgment on you. That is just a fact. That's just a fact. I lied, I manipulated, I verbally abused, I financially abused, I threw shit, I broke shit. I caused a lot more damage than she did. She developed patterns because of that damage. A lot of spouses do. Your spouse probably has too. Their work is often about healing from that damage in the beginning. Okay? Once we repair and make right on the behaviors that caused harm, so once I've established safety is what I'm saying, and safety can take time. For some people, it's rather quickly. For others, this can take years, okay? Once you've done that though, you're right, the ball is in their court to begin to unwind those patterns with us by their side. That is love, for them to do that with us. And I think that having patience for them while they do that, while you have healed, is also love. That is what love is, right? You're allowed to be a burden for a time. It's okay. And I had to acknowledge that it was going to take a while for me to earn that safety. And I would have to display that. And I would have to show her that I am a safe person. Over time, once she realizes that, now, like, what we're looking at is just Paige and like her own like quirks of character, whatever you want to call them. Like, some of her anxieties and some of her concerns and some of the ways that she responds that didn't have anything to do with me. That was just like patterns she learned like from her own household. Like, Paige is a yeller. She yells. That's what she does, man. They're loud people. I love my in-laws. I absolutely freaking adore them, but they're loud folks. And she's like, I need to stop doing that. I'm like, yeah, like, it's rather disturbing. I don't like it. I don't like when you yell. I don't like when you snap like that. Please, like, work on that. And she's okay. I will work on that. I will do better. And she does a fantastic job. It is both of us taking accountability, but I have to acknowledge that we had to put the fire out first. I was the fire. And so many of you guys want her to start pulling the same exact weight that you are on day one without recognizing how much damage they're healing from. Okay. Create safety first. Just create safety. To look at it any other way, in my opinion, is incredibly selfish and is maybe the biggest red flag that you can wave around when someone is asking you for something before they begin the work, or saying, I will only go insofar as you do XYZ. It's insane to me. And a lot of times in these emails, I will also get some mention of physical intimacy, which is maybe the biggest red flag of them all. I'm going to go fucking crazy if I see another guy define their love language as physical touch. Like, I'm going to lose my mind. Why is it that all of you have the same love language and it's physical touch? And it's not just physical touch, like scratching your back, which I love. It's scratching your dick. It's one particular part of your body that you're always talking about. Like, let's be honest. That's not what you're asking is sex. You're asking for more sex in exchange for doing emotional work. That's abuse. Call it what it is. Dude, it should never be contingent on that. In my experience in life, I've talked about this before, I think recently on an episode, is that when you take care of safety, when you have emotional connection in your relationship, that part takes care of itself. You don't have to think about it, right? But you can't insist on it or say that since I'm not getting this show ruined my marriage. That's disgusting. It's disgusting. There's no physical intimacy, probably because she doesn't feel close or safe with you, because all this stuff has suddenly come to light and you have yet to take accountability for it or change your behavior in any way. And so rather than changing it, you clubbed her on the head and dragged her back into the cave, which, if you're listening, like, I hope you keep listening. That's all. It concerns me. It really does. But a word for spouses now. Yeah, spouses have their own quirks, right? Everyone has quirks. I have quirks. I do stuff that annoys me that have nothing to do with my addiction. It's just my personality, and people have different personalities. Some people snap easily. Some people make jokes when they shouldn't. Some people don't take things seriously. Some people are kind of aloof and they don't concentrate, like whatever it might be. But spouses at some point will have work to do. I think we just have to put the fire out first. That's what my contention has always been, is that you will have to do work to make a safe environment, and we can start to work together on things, right? Sometimes in the beginning, some of the like responses and the way that you speak it's really tough to listen to someone when they're chastising you, or they are vilifying you, or they are being critical. Like, and I don't mean critical, I mean like mean, like disgusting, like vile, shaming you. Like, that's not helpful. That's not helpful. And I don't know how you would expect anyone to be responsive to that, right? So if that's one of your struggles, I would say you're probably right. You need to communicate in a healthy way before we're ever going to get anywhere. I didn't have someone doing those things to me. I was raised by someone that did those things to me. I know it's not helpful, right? It's not helpful whenever you're struggling to have someone talk to you that way. It's just not. But our content was never meant to be weaponized. Something I hate is whenever we have a video that goes viral and people start tagging their spouse in it and then arguing in the comments. It's like the most uncomfortable thing ever, because that's what they're doing, right? I don't know what they're arguing about. I don't know their situation. Oftentimes, clips on the internet are completely out of context. Like, I don't know y'all's story, but I'm pretty sure you're not listeners of the show. And so they will weaponize it. They will take a clip and send it to someone and say, bam, told you. And it's like, that's not really what we ever intended our stuff to do. It's supposed to be a vehicle for you to discover who you are and your own experiences and to make sense of them, and to make decisions that come from your values, from a place of true understanding, not to beat someone else over the head with. We are not telling you to become petty. I hate petty. Petty's funny sometimes, but I hate it. Like, what does it achieve other than a laugh, right? Maybe it makes you feel good in the moment. I think sometimes it's hilarious, but Paige hates it, like hates it. She's like, but at the same time, like, I understand it. Like, I get it. I can only imagine when you've been in a situation for that long, you get to the point where you're like, F it, I don't even care anymore. You know, I get it. Like, we are not telling people to become controlling. We are not telling you to hold every mistake your partner's ever made over their head forever. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're not telling you to turn every single disagreement into some like courtroom battle. We're not telling you to weaponize recovery language or therapy language or any of this stuff. This stuff is for you to understand what's happening in your life. Like, I think for the people that are doing that, something that you fail to understand is that no amount of you telling them to understand is going to change them. It's when they want to understand that things change. People sometimes change, but rarely in relationships and never when they're told to. That is an Alain de Botton quote I absolutely love. You cannot make them see it in any way. No amount of you leaving articles on their desk or sending them videos or TikToks or podcast episodes is really going to change that. And I've learned this the hard way too, because I thought, well, maybe if I communicate it differently, then they'll understand. They won't. I've made episodes literally that were like, if you were sent this, please listen. And maybe it cracks the door. Maybe I planted a seed, but it doesn't like just like flip a switch and change everything right away. And so I understand the want to get someone to understand, but you can't make them understand. I have seen probably thousands of comments that have some version of, how can I make him understand? You can't. How can I make him change? How can I make him see? You can't. You can't. If there was a way, everyone would know what it is and we wouldn't have these problems because we would all be doing it. There is no way. Ask anyone in recovery or anyone who's ever made some dramatic change in their life. They'll tell you a version of a story that goes something like this. I had to see it for myself once I got miserable enough about what was happening to me, what was going on in my life. And then I decided to change. I wanted to do something different. That's the way it usually works. It's not because so-and-so suggested it or sent me a video or any of those things. I mean, education is important. I don't want people to like just not send stuff. Maybe it's helpful in some way to plant a seed, but it's not going to dramatically change things. I don't want this stuff to be weaponized. I hate that. Cannot stand. If that's what you're doing, please stop. Yeah, like healing doesn't work that way. It doesn't work when you yank someone like, by a leash and you drag them through it. They have to want to walk that path themselves. I don't want you guys throwing this in your partner's face. I don't want you to become obsessed with like catching every single mistake. That's not what we teach. And again, I think that we're for the smart people. I think that you guys know that. I think for the people who are like fringe listeners who maybe just watched a few videos, maybe that's what you're doing. Stop, knock it off. But the fact of the matter is that the people who need to hear this message won't hear it. And those of you who could probably do with maybe being a little more assertive will take it straight to heart. That's like the curse of content, right? Because the algorithm shows you what you need, like thinks you want to see. It's not going to show those people our stuff. It's going to show you this stuff. And so you'll see it, but you could probably do with being more assertive. They won't see it. I get the comment all the time, like his page, not mine. I know, right? I wish algorithms worked the opposite way. I wish they could flip it. But please don't use our content to become like self-righteous or cruel or impossible to please or hyper-focused on your partner's flaws while ignoring any of your own work. I think you've missed the point. That's not what we do. And go no further than listening to a Paige's Perspective episode where Paige talks in depth about her own journey on things, but we will always be there to validate your pain. We will always be there to acknowledge and understand where a lot of that pain came from. And we will acknowledge the very real fact that some of your patterns are a result of the dysfunction that you've been living in at the hands of someone who is abusive and addicted. That's just, I'm not changing my mind on that. Okay. That is true. We will always be there for you guys, but don't weaponize it. Okay. So for spouses and partners, yeah, like there's work to be done because every single person in the entire world can improve. We can all do better in some way, shape, or form. But, we're not for everyone. And some people maybe aren't ready for this message, and that's fine. Maybe some people need softer language. Maybe some people are still really defensive and they're just not ready for it. And that's okay too. We're not offended by it. Like, I think like on a personal level, like my ego is hurt that I'm misunderstood maybe, because I want to be a great communicator and I want everyone to hear this and take something great from it. And I want you to say that it benefited you, but it would be crazy to think that everyone would feel that way. Right. It's just, that's my ego talking, and I can acknowledge that. Yeah. I have to look at it in a utilitarian way, like, the greatest good for the greatest number, while acknowledging that there would be some non-zero number of people that hate us because of it. And that's okay. But I am sorry that if anyone has ever listened and like experienced hardship, I would advise that you use your discernment and you find something that works for you. But if what we did was just simply open your eyes, I would encourage you to keep going. And if you are someone like me who started down this journey with your wife and now things are turning in a direction that you don't like, I think that like that's maybe the most dangerous thing in the world, because you have to ask yourself what you don't like. Is it because you've lost the upper hand? Is it because that you can no longer arbitrage information and someone else is basically calling you on your shit? Is it because another person in your shoes is saying things that you didn't want to say, but you know are true? Like, that's abuse. And I hate to think what's going on behind closed doors. If you want them to stop listening so that you can take her back to naive, dude, that is disgusting. That is not what we're about. That is not okay. If you're a couple that's discovered some hard truths, maybe you guys talk about some of these conversations with a professional, someone who's more knowledgeable than me or Paige about, handling those types of disagreements or that wound that it opened up in a better way. But just be cautious, right? Be cautious. We approach everything with love and understanding, but like when I see it, I will call it out. And I think that a lot of people that don't like this because they started listening and opened up these doors, they don't want to look inside. Yeah. Whenever suddenly you have to look at the reality of your behavior and what that's done to someone, and you have to see the pain that it's caused, and you have to watch them kind of turn away from you and look at you differently. That's tough, but that's the truth. And that's just reality. And you cannot go back to being naive. You cannot unlearn this stuff unless your plan is to control her and arbitrage information and manipulate her, in which case I would encourage her to get the fuck away from you. With that, that's all I got. That's how I'm going to end this one. Again, thank you guys for being listeners. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you guys for being there. I will say that I do not by any means think that we are like the authority on this stuff. We're just a perspective. And like truly, like if you guys like other stuff in addition to us, which I hope that you do, like just use, like we're for the smart people. Like maybe you like some of our stuff, but you like this other person's version of something else better. Maybe you like this other person's take on addiction matters better. Like, dude, it's a hodgepodge. It's a buffet. Take what you want to fill your belly in the way that you need it filled according to your taste and your needs, right? Like we're one version of this, one that we believe in, but maybe it's like we're different people. Why would everything that we do work for you guys? We think that we set a pretty good example for people. We do set a high bar, which we do not apologize for, by the way. Standards are a beautiful thing. Let's bring them back. I just think that, man, use your common sense here, right? Use your common sense. And for all the wheelies out there, thank you guys so much for listening. Keep listening. I hope you keep learning, keep acknowledging some difficult things that bring up these awesome conversations that can do one of two things. They can set you free, or they can bring you closer than you could ever imagine being, both of which are beautiful outcomes. And so thanks for being here. Until next time, I'm Matt, and I'll see you.